world's largest economy, the United States of America, is running out of cash. And if they don't do anything about it before the 1st of June, the superpower could default.
And it's very good news for the American people. No one got everything they wanted, but the American people got what they needed.
The legislation allows the U.S. government to spend more money and pay its bills. The current debt is $31.8 trillion and counting.
Namaste guys. On 2nd June, US Senate passed the debt ceiling bill, which would have otherwise resulted in disastrous effects in US economy and around the world. With this bill, US can now take debt upon its previous existing levels of $31.5 trillion. Yes, you heard it right, $31.5 trillion. It's almost 10 times of our economy. The question is, if the government has a debt of almost 130% of its GDP, how American government is running its economy? In this video, we're going to discuss about debt ceiling and debt breakdown and debt analysis. Also, we're going to discuss about how American debt is different from other countries' debt. Also, why on earth the debt ceiling is required if government can raise it whenever it wants. In this video, we're going to discuss and explore all of these topics. Before getting into the debt ceiling, debt breakdown and debt analysis, we need to first understand how American democracy works. It works almost like Indian democracy, with small differences here and there. In our country, we have parliament, which makes laws and governs the country. In America, it is US Congress. US Congress has two houses, House of Representatives and House of Senate. It's almost like our Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. If any bill wants to get and become a law, it have to approved by these two houses. House of Representatives have to approve it and House of Senate have to approve it. And there is US Treasury. US Treasury manages all the income and expenditure of the government. If any day there is a fiscal deficit means there is a gap between income and the expenditure. And if the expenditure is more than its income, there comes a gap and US Treasury will fill that gap. If there is a year with fiscal deficit, American government asks US Treasury to raise the debt. US Treasury will raise the debt by issuing bonds. In the next segment, we'll get to know about how Treasury bonds and bills works. How Treasury bonds and bills work, we have to take an example. For suppose, let's say American government needs $1 billion. Obviously, being the world's richest economy, it doesn't have that kind of money. It will ask US Treasury to raise the debt. US Treasury will take those $1 billion and breaks them into 1,000 pieces, which makes the cost of one piece is around $1 million. US Treasury will release these bonds into the market, and various entities and countries buy these bonds. Let's say China bought 200 bonds, France, Italy and Japan bought 100 bonds each, and remaining bonds are bought by American companies and American public. US Treasury will promise to pay them 2% interest every single year, and let's say they fix for a maturity period of 30 years. After 30 years, the bond holders will get their principal amount back, and in the meanwhile, they'll keep paying the interest of 2% every year to the bond holders. And these bonds are known as one of the safest investments and most liquid assets around the world. That's why they are called as pristine collateral. At a time, these bonds are calculated is almost as safe as gold investment. But in 2012, 11 or 12 something, because of this debt ceiling issue only, the bonds rating fell from AAA to AA. Before breaking down the America's debt, we need to understand a term called debt to GDP ratio. To understand this, let us take an example. Let's say India has an income of 100 rupees and a debt of 70 rupees. This makes India's debt to GDP ratio as 70%. If you look into various economies around the world, China has a debt to GDP ratio of 80%. India has a debt to GDP ratio of 85%. UK has a debt to GDP ratio of 90%. And highest among the all, Japan has a debt to GDP ratio of 240%. It means Japan has 240% of its debt over its economy. When it comes to America's case, America has a debt of 130%, debt to GDP ratio of 130%. This means America economy is $21 trillion and debt is $31.5 trillion. If you are wondering how this much of debt racked up over the years, because the main reason is America posted fiscal deficit every single year since 2001, and As we discussed earlier, this debt is mostly owned through bonds. And if you see the figures, who owns the bonds? Basically, 40% of bonds are owned by American companies and public. And America's Fed own 30% of the 30% of the bonds. Yes, you hit it right. America owns America's own debt, and the remaining 25% is owned by foreign governments. And basically, in this situation, America has to manage both to run the country by paying the expenses, taxpayers' bills, pensions, etc., and has to pay the interest also. And this interest keep on increasing because it has to keep taking the debt every single year. All of these things, here comes two questions. Will America ever default? What are the consequences if it ever defaults on the world? Before getting into that, we have to see what are the other countries which defaulted before. Some of the countries are Argentina, Greece, Russia, Sri Lanka, and Lebanon. Leave about the older ones, let's take Sri Lanka case. Sri Lanka is the country which defaulted its debts most recently. And you all see what is happening there. Sri Lanka is facing hyperinflation, depreciation, and political instability since its default. Does this mean America also face all these things if it's have a default? Yes, America, if its defaults, is pushed into recession and dollar loses its value. But here, the case is different. What are the probabilities of America defaulting its debt? As of now, very low, because America has a superpower. The superpower name called is dollar. Dollar is known as old reserve currency. Every other country transacts in dollars to make the transactions of imports and exports, and all the other countries wants to hold the dollar because it increase their foreign reserves and directly impacts the imports and exports of their countries. And this gives the America unfair advantage of printing any much of dollars they want. They printed almost 3.2 trillion dollars in corona time. These results are seeing now. Many countries are facing inflation around the world because of this one thing. And also, America can take debt of any amount it wants because every country wants to hold the T bills. But what happens if countries started ditching the dollar? Yeah, de-dollarization. In that case, America will default its debt more probably sooner or later because the debt is increasing enormously, and at one point the America is not going to handle that. Lessons to be learned from American debt ceiling case study. It doesn't matter how many advantages you have. If you are not careful and smart, your mistakes will come back at you and pull you down. This case study brings some light in all the issues covered in this video. If you like the video, please share it. And if you have any queries and suggestions, please do comment. If you think that I am making mistakes, please bear with me, I'll improve. Thank you.